Welcome to the latest episode of Mob Talk Sit Down. I'm Dave Schratweiser.
And I'm George Anastasia.
George, we crossed the bridge over here to Camden from Philadelphia to talk about the sentencing of Philly mob soldier Sal Piccolo.
12 and a half years, and he's 68 years old. Most of his adult life is going to be spent in prison.
All right, George, Sal Piccolo in federal court here in Camden gets sentenced to 12 and a half years on a drug case that we've been covering for more than a year and a half, almost 2 years now. Your thoughts on this pretty serious case?
Well, one, it's his second drug offense, and that's why I think he got hammered. And most of what remains of his adult life is going to be spent in prison. That's what's very unfortunate. And this is a case that, in the beginning, we heard it's a mob organized crime drug case, and there was going to be more to come. A lot of tapes, Anthony Persiano wearing a tape, an FBI undercover wearing a tape. But what we've seen in a year and a half are the 4 alleged drug dealers, no more. And we kept hearing there's going to be more, there's going to be more. Hasn't happened.
Yeah, they've all been jailed. Interesting, during his statement to the judge, Piccolo talked about Persiano and said he did the pawn shop ripoff that they've been accused of and now pled guilty to out of some misguided loyalty to Persiano, his friend Anthony Persiano, who was working undercover after that, and then got involved in the drug part of this again for his good friend Anthony Persiano, who turned out to be a cooperator and not such a good friend, bringing FBI agents right to Piccolo's doorstep.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this again and again. Persiano gets jammed up. He was jammed up and owed $200,000 or something and planned the heist of a jewelry store up in North Jersey, and it became an insurance fraud in order to get the money back, and Piccolo went along with it. Now, you know, and there's also talk that Persiano, Piccolo, all these guys were made guys, and when you start talking about made guys and loyalty and honor, it goes by the boards when it comes to, am I going to spend the rest of my life in jail? I mean, Persiano made the decision that a lot of guys in Philadelphia have made. I'm not going to go to jail, I'm going to cooperate, I'm going to strap on a wire. And, you know, guys on the street say, this is a rat, this is this, this is that. At the end of the day, and we've mentioned this, I think, before, Persiano was somewhere, working somewhere.
Right.
And Piccolo,
pled guilty.
Right. Piccolo and the other guys are in jail. Now, Persiano is supposed to be sentenced on, last time I looked, it was December 19th, sometime next month. And the interesting thing to watch, Dave, I think, is if he's sentenced, to me, that's a clear signal they're not going to use him as a witness.
Right.
Usually, if you're going to use you as a witness, you get up on the stand and say, well, I'm waiting to be sentenced, depends on the judge, blah, blah, blah. If they're sentencing him, I think it's a clear signal we're not going to see him on the witness stand.
Now, we talked to Piccolo's attorney, Lou Barbone, who's partners with Eddie Jacobs, Joey Merlino's lawyer in Atlantic City.
Right.
He had this to say about the sentence right after it happened.
I think it's all sad. I believe what Sal said. I think he did it, and he did what he did because of his thought process of helping friends. And in the end, that's sad.
All right, George, also in the courtroom was a very sympathetic and supportive family for Sal Piccolo, but right next to him, mob captain Dominic Grandi and former Scarfo soldier Joe Grandi sitting in the row with him as a sign of support. Interesting that they would show up at that hearing.
Yeah, I mean, they're related. I think that's one of the reasons. The other thing is Dominic Grandi's name has always been on the fringe of this investigation. And there were indications from some of the tapes and some of the transcripts that we saw that he was recorded conversing with these guys. And again, it comes back to what we said earlier. All along it was, you know, this is one step and we're going to keep going up the ladder. They haven't gone up that ladder. Dominic Grandi, I think, clearly was a guy they wanted to put in this case, haven't been able to do it. And it remains to be seen whether anything else that was gathered during that investigation is going to show up somewhere else down the road.
There's actually a couple of lines in there about kicking up in Philadelphia, unnamed organized crime figure on tape in that case, basically saying, I do it every week, that's what we do, everything goes up. That's the kind of comments that get you in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, and we were told by law enforcement that that was Grandi. Now, again, is it indicative of some guilt, or is it just an explanation of this is the way it works, this is what we do? You got to kick up to me, I got to kick up to the next guy. I think what they haven't been able to do, at least to date, is put Dominic Grandi in the drug case. Yeah. So where are they going to go with this? Or is this the end of it? Very well may be this is the end of the Persiano phase of this investigation.
All right, now he has not been charged. On the way out of the courthouse, he and Joe Grandi were leaving. I walked up and asked Dominic whether he had a comment. Here's what happened. Dom, you want to say anything about the sentence at all? All right, George, we're going to switch gears to a kind of Philly-centric story that's out there right now. The Irishman, the movie, is out with Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci. Was in the box office, coming on Netflix, coming up here. And interesting movie, getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but no doubt with the actors and with Scorsese, it's a good movie. The question is it based on a true story? Is the story accurate? And that's where the flack has been coming in. This is Frank Sheeran claiming that he killed Jimmy Hoffa. De Niro plays Sheeran in the movie. I've talked to a lot of people who say that's nonsense, that didn't happen. There are people who have studied the Hoffa murder for years and years and years. Guys like Danny Moldea, who's written about it at length. He's basically saying this is not a true story. That being said, it's not going to matter if it's a good cinema. People are going to go, people are going to like it.
Yeah, Moldea is actually working with Eric Shawn from Fox News talking about this. They've been doing a lot on TV about it. And they have two other guys doing it, two brothers.
Sal Bruglio, I think, is one of them.
And his brother supposedly allegedly involved in that. They also have Jimmy Hoffa buried in a landfill at the end of Sip Avenue in Jersey City, right near a mob clubhouse right there, where supposedly Tony Provenzano got the order to take out Hoffa.
Yeah, I mean, Provenzano's name is all over this. He was a part of that conspiracy to kill Hoffa. The Hoffa murder, the Hoffa disappearance, is one of the great American mysteries, I guess surpassed only by the Kennedy assassination. And both of those events involved the mob in some way, shape, or form. And I think, as I said, this is probably a very good movie, although, I mean, I think you indicated it doesn't rise to the level of some of the other great ones.
Everybody I've talked to said it's a very good movie. The acting's excellent, very good as well, but not up there with Goodfella, not up there with Casino. Some guys even said Heat, that kind of stuff. So, a good movie. I'm sure it's going to get a lot of play on Netflix, and we're not really talking too much about the movie. We're talking about the actual story behind the movie. And De Niro has been quoted recently as saying, this is our story. Yeah. Meaning, and in the movies, it doesn't necessarily have to be true.
I know, it doesn't, but it's pitched as, here's what really happened to Jimmy Hoffa. I think that's what bothers some people. It bothers people like Danny Moldea, who spent most of his journalistic career trying to get to the bottom of this, and to see something like this, it's frustrating. I met Sheeran once in my life. This was toward the end of his life, and my recollection is he was totally incoherent at that time. Didn't make any sense. I don't know if he had dementia at that point. There's a lot of Philly background in all of this. And depending on who you talk to, and I think Ralph Natale, who I'm not a big fan of, and his credibility is also suspect, he's described Sheeran as nothing more than a drunk, and that none of this stuff ever happened. Now, I think Sheeran also claims he killed Joey Gallo up in New York, and that's another murder that people are skeptical about. Could this guy have done it? He doesn't fit the description of the hitman that night, that kind of stuff. All of that being said, Charlie Brandt, the lawyer who wrote the book, is basically laughing all the way to the bank now because he's hit a home run with this. And there's a difference between cinema and reality, and I think we're right up against the line with this one.
And that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
All right, George, let's close this out with a November to remember here in Philadelphia. Some interesting anniversary dates.
Yeah, John Stanford was convicted and is doing 5 life terms. Johnny Casasanto was killed in November. So November's been a month to remember for Philadelphia. The question is, we're going to see anything more.
Stanford still behind bars. The Casasanto hit still unsolved.